So moved. Properly moved. You have a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is passed. We're ready to move forward.
Well, Amigo Match Day, that was quite a day. A lot of fun. Yeah. We had total donations just under $10,000, $9,685 from 25 donors. And we were listed as number 12 on the leaderboard. I think they had close to what, 30 charities. So we did pretty well. Combined with that was the business after hours that evening that we co-hosted with the Wamego Foundation for the chamber. And the turnout we had for the open house for it was amazing. The number of people and people from Manhattan that came over. Kent Glasscock and his wife came over. Vern Hendricks came over. A lot of other people, but universal reaction. Wow, I can't believe what you've done to this place and what you're going to do. So good investment of time and resources, thanks to a lot of people, a lot of our staff, faculty, etc. Putting it all together. It looks good over there. We have signed off on the contract to finish renovating on building 2. We're waiting on civil engineering plans, Olson related to some issues with building 3 and then BBN's proposal from that. We know on building 3, we've got to run some utilities and there's some parking lot issues. When we get the civil engineering information, I'll be visiting with the city manager, Steve Fincher, to see what they can do to help. But Match Day itself, very good. Last week, the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation held a trustees reception and meeting and asked everybody who received money from the community foundation here in the past year, you had 70 seconds to give a report. Our report was related to the challenge grants we had for Wamego, so I gave that update, talked to Phil Howe afterwards, some other key folks. And at that meeting, I was able to announce, one, that our enrollment was up 10% this year. And more importantly, the latest data from KBOR shows that almost 80% of our graduates stay in the region, or like 78.5%. And that got a pretty good reaction from the crowd in that room. That's huge. Any questions on Wamego Match Day?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to commend the board for everybody that contributed. And us not a note by excuse me, ahead of time, but it is easier for us to go out and say or ask people for donations when you know we all contribute. I won't keep a tally on if you did or not, but I just want to say thank you to everybody that did. So let's keep up the good work going forward and trying to support the college as best we can. So thank you.
Thank you all. Okay. Policy updates, our favorite topic.
Yes, I'm slowly looking through them. The first policy that I have for the board that I need action on, please, is policy 5.1.6, nursing transfer credit. I am working with our new dean of nursing education and health programs, Kim Davis, on we are preparing for ASIN accreditation visit and KSBN state visits that is coming up October of 2022. And as she's working on the report, we're reviewing policies that haven't been reviewed in quite some time. And one of the things we noticed, as I mentioned, the policy that I brought prior, was that these policies were within the nursing department, but they weren't part of the institution. And so we have institutional policies that cover some of these things that are part of the nursing program, but they have to have their own policy per accreditation standards. And so we want to get them as part of the institutional policies as well and in line with institutional policies. And so we have, with this particular one, we have combined a policy that was part of the practical nursing program and the associate degree nursing program into one policy and had it revert and have it refer back to our institutional policy when it comes to transfer credit. And so that's what this policy is trying to clean things up and be more transparent to students about when they're coming into our nursing program and transfer credit.
Yeah.
I do, because it's new.
Does this mirror the rest of the college?
Yes.
As far as requirements?
Yeah, it even specifically states, it refers us to our institutional policy. So
Right.
the students have to follow our same process and sending the appropriate information to the registrar for it to be evaluated within our standards.
And it says in the rationale, it says in the last 2 years may be able to receive partial credit.
Right.
We determine what that partial credit is.
It is based on evaluating of the actual course themselves. So if they're trying to bring in nursing credit that doesn't necessarily come from a Kansas institution, but it's an accredited institution, then the objectives and competencies may not match exactly. And so we might be able to bring in some credit for certain courses. In the PN program, the classes and the clinical pieces are separate. They're two separate classes, where with the ADN program, it's one major course. And so we would more than likely see this more on the PN side, where they may have some clinical hours already that can meet towards our state requirements. But more than likely, they would still have to do the course that has the full didactic, because they have to meet our standards that the state has set and our accreditor has set. So that's where the partial credit comes in, because they may have already been through nursing program, have some hours on the floor that they can utilize towards the clinical piece of things.
I was just asking that because,
Yeah.
I mean, in other programs, you may cap off how much credit you will give. We say maybe, but see partial, but
As an institution, we cap off the total. It's very, very rare if we've ever had a student use this. It's very rare. And a lot of times if we see it, it's more on the military side.
Yeah.
And so if they're wanting to practice within the state of Kansas, and the state of Kansas is saying they need some form of training. So.
sounds good to me. Any other questions?
Kim is on here. Kim, did you have any comments for the board?
Not really. I think the big difference between our PN and our ADN program, the state of Kansas, so far as KBOR and the Board of Nursing, is much more prescriptive with a practical nursing program, and the fact they have a common core curriculum. So it's much easier to articulate a PN student from the state of Kansas from one institution to another, because the courses and the objectives all line up. They are not as prescriptive for associate degree nursing. In Kansas, you can be a registered nurse, you can get a bachelor's degree or associate degree. So the curriculums are so different. It's like Sarah said, it's rather challenging for a student to start an ADN program somewhere else and be able to transfer all their credits in, where it's very easier for a practical nurse. And it's just the way the system is. So we've been able to do it on rare occasions with ADN. It's much more easier in the PN.
Thank you. Okay, we do need to take action on this. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to approve the nursing transfer credit policy 5.1.6.
Move. Do I have a second?
Second.
Probably moving second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. That change is approved.
The next policy that I have is policy 4.1.1, new course preparations. It's actually called new course development. As an institution, we really didn't have a policy or process in place to reimburse faculty who would create brand new curriculum. And so this policy was, I think, more of came from the K-12 system, where it was paying instructors prep time. You know, the secondary instructors have a prep period every day. And so they were being reimbursed for prep time to create curriculum. In a higher education institution, you really have a policy or something in place to reimburse faculty who create brand new courses, because there has to be the exchange of, you have to pay your expert for the curriculum they develop, so then that way we own the curriculum. If we don't, then they actually own it because of copyright regs. And so this policy, I rewrote this policy so then that way, when it comes in terms with us being a higher education institution, and we have a policy and process in place that I've already been following to reimburse faculty when they create new courses or new curriculum. The other thing is that if we have a new faculty member that comes in, or if we have a program that has sat for a while, with us being a technical institution, things change within the industry, and they can change yearly. They definitely change within 5 years. And so the policy also supports a new instructor that's coming in, that if we revamp some courses, we reimburse them for that work that they put in to make sure that we are up to date and compliant with being done in the industry at that point. So I don't need action on this policy. This policy was approved prior by the board, but this is an FYI to let you know that I did make those adjustments.
We have any programs that are sitting in kind of a gray area, whether they were developed under this type of setting or?
Yeah, no, because of where I came from and being chief academic officer, I already knew that I needed to protect the institution with that side of things, with us owning the property, owning the intellectual property. And so I was using this policy to kind of set a precedence and went ahead and reimbursed and stipend the faculty that were doing it. So I had an approval form. I was reimbursed them based on the standards of this policy for new course development. It's just finding the minute to sit down and actually put it in writing to make it truly effective. But no, we don't have any situations where we as MATC don't own our curriculum.
Okay.
I've dealt with that already. Past institutions, it's not fun.
No.
So no, we own everything. We
Okay.
will always own everything as long as I'm sitting here.
Okay, no action required on that. If there's no further discussion, we can move on to discussion of ends.
Facilities and projects.
So we don't have a ton since last month. Jim kind of brought up what's going on in Wamego. The only thing to add there is we're having bi-weekly project meetings with the contract and design building team over there. Everything's on schedule. Right now, it looks like final punch list to finish out building 2 should be at the front end of January. As Jim mentioned, we're still waiting on the civil engineering piece for building 3, as well as they're finalizing some electrical pieces of the drawings. We needed to get some specs on some planned use welders and things that we were going to use for that building. So that should be close. We talked about the SimMan room in nursing last month. The city has signed off, that build is done. And the city signed off on it as far as the code side goes. So now we're just waiting on the equipment, which has already been ordered. As soon as that's here, we can get all of that stuff installed. On the train analysis, we've done the walkthrough. We've got them all the data and everything they need on their end. So I think they're just putting that all together and then should have some sort of proposal and probably some more questions for us. So like Jim said, we'll update you on that as soon as we have it. I think that's all. Project-wise, I think that won't be-
Questions?
There's steel walls up in Wamego. Steel framings up. Walked through it today.
Yeah, it's going quick. We didn't set the fire alarm off this week. So far this week. It's on
So far,
Tuesday.
yeah.
What sort of utility issues are there on the building 3 that you guys are discovering?
They've got to pull water over for bathrooms and use.
So it's just from building.
Right. And then much more electrical because of welding going in.
Yeah, and the last time the city kind of looked at on the electrical side, they had thought at that time it would make more sense to bring in its own meter and come off the main instead of daisy chain back to building 1 and go back to building 1. But yeah, water and sewer would come off. They left a large enough size pipe where it comes into building 2 to go on out to 3. So,
On the fire alarms, did you get that figured out on how to do the notifications?
yes, so
Okay.
we got that updated to add the coordinator over
The
there.
coordinator, good.
And then we had a discussion on how to quit setting them off. So I think they're done cutting concrete now. So hopefully it's on.
That's how we're setting it off. Concrete does.
And we discussed how that can be eliminated.
Yeah.
The most fun at the business after hours with the former Blue Stem employees.
Yeah.
They came through. They were blown away.
How clean it was.
Yeah.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to faculty senate. Brian talking. Or-
Ryan and Jeff are both up there. We'll see who mutes first.
Definitely beat them to the punch.
Or you can both stay muted with your lips. We'll try to interpret.
I don't know if Jeff has a whole lot. We talked about this last week, but I do have a couple of things. The first thing I want to bring up is Chelsea had started the Alzheimer's Association Walk to end Alzheimer's. She got a group of some faculty members, herself, Matt, and Monique. They formed the team, and then they did a walk for it as well. Their goal was to get $1,000. They did get $850, so they didn't quite get it. There is still opportunity to donate, she said, until December 31st. But while Chelsea and Monique were able to walk, Matt was not able to at that time when they walked. But there were several MATC faculty and staff that donated. And Chelsea's looking forward to taking this all the way through again next year and coming years. So I thought that's kind of a neat little outreach that she started with that, with using some faculty. In the business program, I got an update there where they placed a well-qualified first semester student in a part-time position in the accounting HR department of the Farm Bureau. The student is working approximately 20 hours a week and is scheduled to graduate MATC in December of 2022. So Jason said this was a great opportunity that the student has formed with the Kansas Farm Bureau after graduation, and is hoping that other current students can do internships like this. So those were a couple of things that was what I want to bring out within the college for the faculty.
Thanks, Brian. Any comments? Jeff, anything?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
We saw you shaking your head. You didn't want to come first anyway. All right.
He said he talked enough last week, so.
There are no other, go ahead.
I should mention real quick, faculty and staff, I need to Neil jump in here. We're having a little Halloween thing this week.
Yeah, most certainly. So we're trying to develop it into a yearly thing. COVID kind of derailed. We had it last year, even amongst that. We dubbed it Halloween at MATC. So we kind of have carnival games, just little knick-knack games for little kids and things of that nature. We have about 15 different type of carnival games. I know we are monitoring the weather on Thursday, knowing that's going to be slightly windy and possibly chilly. So it might relocate from outside to inside the college, but it's going to be from 4 to 6 on Thursday, and we generally see a lot of little kids that come through, and we give out kind of grab bags full of candy and little knick-knack toys and whatnot. So I know faculty are participating, staff, everyone kind of at the college helping out and running little carnival game events. So
You guys dress up.
I was told I can't enter a costume contest if I win.
Yes, they've been playing in their costumes all week.
So we will be dressed up.
What are you gonna be, Chris?
Probably a bison.
Yeah.
Why are you the polar bear?
No, it's for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
I ain't talking about that. I got it last night. It's 8 feet tall. It's awesome.
Oh.
You got it last night? I'm hoping mine will come in.
I'll send you a picture.
We are also doing the Halloween at Walmego on Friday as well. So we'll be in front of the chamber there with the booth. And I know that Suzanne and I will probably be there, and hopefully a couple other people. So we are also participating in that on Friday.
Is that Friday or Saturday, Brian?
I think it's Friday.
Is it?
Friday.
Okay.
Friday, Tim.
I better check. Our last fire meeting, we were told Saturday.
I'm 99.99%.
Let me
sure
text
it's
Kara and
Friday.
double check. It's Friday.
It's Friday.
You can show them on
I got
Saturday.
you. It's Friday. Good job. You were on.
Thanks, Anna.
Now.
Okay, if there's nothing else from the faculty senate, we can move on to monitoring reports.
Yes, this is
COVID's
the
not.
month. This is the month of catching up on many reports. The first 3 are related to finance and operations, and Carmela and Melissa, who is filling in in a great way for a lot of things for Carmela as we do this transition. So I'm going to turn it over to the 2 of them to walk you through the reports and see what questions you may have. The final one on achievement events, I'll talk about that in a little bit. So, Carmela and Melissa, it away.
Well, I can help you through that. I don't have a board packet in front of me. I did get one, but that's okay. So the first one that you have there is the asset monitoring, Jim. Which one?
Financial forecasting.
Financial forecasting. Thank you. I can pull it up because I worked on it. All right. So this one here, one of the internal monitoring reports is about budgeting and financial planning forecasting. And as you all put into place, the first policy provision is that the budget shall not deviate significantly from the board's ends. That according to the president, he shall not, or we shall not allow budgeting which contains too little or too less information that's not accurate. And we respond by saying we provide quarterly financial updates and monthly expenditure reports detailing all of the bills and access to financial data. We plan the expenditure in any fiscal year of more funds than are conservatively projected to receive in that period. As you know, our budget is compiled from tiered and non-tiered state post-secondary aid, Perkins funds, capital outlay funds, and we get, of course, various private, state, and federal grants annually. And then the remainder of the budget is projected from revenue through student tuition and fees. And we base that typically on a prior year's enrollment. Most of the time we do a 3-year history. And then, so together, all of those provide the basis for the annual budget. And so we always, well, I have with Jim and Sarah have always budgeted conservatively because we never know what's going to happen during a year. So if the previous year we've had an abundance of credit hours, I always kind of back it up to about 20% less, just in case. It's better to be conservative than to overshoot. We do not provide a prioritized menu of capital outlay funds. We do this, we determine those by several factors. We as a college have to match the what our award from the state 2-to-1. And so during this fiscal year, we will receive, or we have received, the $132,745 towards various capital outlay projects. And of course, we're required to match 50% of that. And we determine the needs by the program, and the college needs identified through different means. So many of the programs or the departments will send in self-study documents to let us know what they're requesting and why and how it benefits their program, the facilities, and the mission. So we try to align that with our mission. We will continue to pursue funds from contributors to enhance programs on campus and create additional instructional space for future growth. As you all are aware, we also were awarded the $619,285.71 from the maintenance of effort funding for capital outlay. And so these are restricted to equipment use only, and administration reviews, requests, and approves them as necessary, because as you know, with the growth of the college, there are a lot of moving pieces going on right now. So we want to make sure that we're spending those funds, of course, within the restricted use of them, and for all of the things that are going on. And then lastly, we do not provide annual operating funds for the board prerogatives, such as we do provide, that's very odd. We do provide the annual operating funds for things for you, the board, the fiscal audit, any professional development for the board, committee meetings, and professional fees. And here is your budget for this year. So our audit is $11,500 estimated, legal fees $35,000, and then the board professional development is at $500. And so again, this is what this document is presented to you. It's presented on an annual basis, and Jim and I both say that we are compliant.
Well, who did we receive the $132,745 from?
For
The
capital.
Kansas Board of Regents. That's our normal capital outlay allocation.
We need to fix
And
that
then
last
the,
bullet.
oh,
Carnell.
sorry, go ahead.
We need to fix that last bullet. We need to change the wording on that and have Jim re-sign it.
Yes. I just realized it says does not.
Yeah.
Don't know why it says
I
does
will
not,
fix that.
Yeah, no
but
problem.
we do provide that for the board.
I was choking on the cinnamon roll at the time.
Yeah. I was very specific if you do not provide it, to give us all those numbers.
Yeah.
Don't give it.
You saw that at the, oops.
Why not?
Specifically do not give you this amount.
Brett had something.
Yeah, item number 3. Why, I'm not saying that the board needs, I guess, have a say in the priority of items, but do you guys have a priority of things?
That's why we've been building it out on the 3D budget, tied to our strategic plan. So we can justify what we're doing. Again, depending on the cost of each project, some things are going to come to you for approval. It goes over the threshold. This year, priorities, Wamego is number 1 priority. What can we do there? Here, we've done the thing, for instance, the sim lab that you approved last month. Some of the issues with the roof, I would call general maintenance of the facility. That's where we stand right now. In addition, one of the other things are the stimulus funds from COVID. We have not spent all of those by any means. There's restrictions on those, but those factor in. That's giving us more of a bubble for last year and this year, where we have more funds available if we can tie it to what they can be used for. So for instance, possibly some of the new air units. One of the things we do in Wamego, if we put in new air filtration, heating systems, cooling systems, like in building 3, building 2, that qualifies for stimulus funds. So we put that together, but again, depending on the cost, it comes to you. But we can certainly put together what we've done and why we prioritized it the way we did.
I asked a couple meetings ago about the deferred maintenance. I know that's not a fund. It's not
Right.
fun to store that money away, but it's
Sure.
important.
And we've addressed a lot of the needs, and we can work that up for you. One of the biggest ones we haven't met yet, because we keep trying to figure out what's the best way to approach it. We don't really have a good maintenance building for our maintenance crew. It's been the piss. But with some of the changes with programs where we've moved DPD into auto collision, some of the other possible moves, we keep trying to think, is there a place we can move maintenance, or do we look at construction trades builds as something for maintenance in the future? So it's on our radar. That's probably the biggest deferred maintenance item on campus at this point, is that kind of maintenance building. This building has been fixed, not just the renovation inside, but this was the building where we had issues related to, I want to say, drainage, and I'm not going to say mold, unusual aromas. Because it kind of drove Greg nuts for a couple of years before we got it fixed. But again, we've addressed most of the major needs, ventilation in the welding area, the new roof, which has been huge because that's where most of our deferred maintenance went before. The stimulus funds have helped us address almost everything in IT. Title III funds helped us do some of the renovations, like the TLC, some of the lab spaces. The funding we got from Westar Evergy when we sold them the land helped fund some of those things. But we can certainly, and we should give it to you, a list of what we've done and what we're looking at. So we'll be glad to put that together. When we've had people come here that haven't been here for a while and they walk around, it's like, man, you've really changed this place. Yeah, it's a lot different than it was.
And there's no timeline how we need to spend that money. So
Well,
we're not.
There are some timelines, like the maintenance of effort funds we have to have done this fiscal year. There's also a chance we'll get more. We're working on that, the tech colleges with the regions. The stimulus funds have different deadlines. We've also put in requests. We're part of a request with Flint Hills Regional Council on healthcare in the area, and we signed off with Technology Development Institute at K-State on their EDA proposal for microfactories. That one wouldn't have any capital outlay issues for us, but the other one would. Yeah. What else?
Walking behind me.
Well, yeah, the big one, is obviously the HVAC now, which we
Right.
went through a training. And I think part of their proposal, we should probably have included is kind of their estimate on their deferred maintenance on their own equipment, you know, how long are these things gonna last?
And the cost savings.
And just to kind of respond to your question and the priority, how we do that. When a program or a department submits a capital outlay request, let's say for just the regular capital outlay funds that we are allocated on an annual basis, when they provide the reasoning behind the request, that's when Sarah, Jim, and I would get together and kind of take a look at that. And Sarah, from that academic standpoint, lets us know, you know, what's going on in that program and if it's needed. Because many times, not only are they requesting from capital outlay, but they're also requesting from the Perkins grant, or did until it changed. And so at that time, it was when we would get together, and that's how we would prioritize what could go under the Perkins grant and what could go under capital outlay. And most of the requests did not exceed, you know, let's say $5,000 or so. And so we were able to kind of get it through without like the board approval. But with the larger sums of money and the larger projects, those will definitely come through. But if you need something that shows like where the funds are going, we have that listed on that 3D budget that Jim mentioned, because we have to keep up with all of the expenditures, because we have to report it back to KBOR as to how we spent it to make sure we're in compliance with them.
I would say over the last 5 years or so, we've probably spent between $2 and $3 million on projects as we've had the funding available, which again, if you look back, I don't think anybody here right now goes back that far. I mean, before me, I should say, everything was deferred. The only change we made was we worked together as a team, looking at the resources, talking to people. We've had a lot of businesses step up. You know, Frank, when HVAC, his advisory group came in 1 year over Christmas break, cleaned everything up and painted, realizing that's what they could do to help us. Contractors help with construction trades. We've had a lot of good input from the, you know, employers in the area helping us as well. None of this is easy, as you know. But then when people see like what we're doing in Wamego, they're blown away. Today, Sarah and some of her crew gave the administrators from Rock Creek School District a tour. I think they were blown out of their shoes. So we'll keep working on getting it more detailed for you, because I would like your input on things. Thank you, Carmela and Melissa. Melissa's now keeping an eye on the budget.
Any further discussion on budgeting, financial planning, and forecasting? Not, we'll keep moving on.
Next one is asset protection.
So together, Josh and I present this to you. And this, of course, is the asset protection. What this says is policy provision 1, fail to insure against property and casualty losses, against liability losses to board members, staff, or the college itself in an amount prudent and advisable under Kansas law. And so we are insured with a value of excess of a $10,000 deductible. The high premium cost at lesser amounts does not justify any change to the policy. We carry insurance in amounts of $1 million for general liability per occurrence and $500,000 for bodily injury for both Manhattan and Wamego properties. We do have the educator's professional liability insurance that protects against errors and omissions. We also have the director and officer's liability coverage, cybersecurity insurance that protects against malicious cyber attacks. And then all of our vehicles are covered under a commercial auto policy. So we have a pretty in-depth insurance policy that covers our college. Allow unbonded personnel to access a significant amount of funds. And so those folks are covered under our insurance, those who have access to large amounts of funds. That's the directors and officers liability coverage. And then, of course, our internal controls, the cash register secured in a locked front office under camera surveillance at all times. There's only a few personnel members who have keys to it that can open it and get into it. There's $40 is what is maintained inside of that cash register each evening. So each day, Melissa or the team will go in and take the excess out and put it in a locked safe. And then deposits are made on a weekly basis. That's also, both of these are part of our internal controls that we have to maintain for auditing purposes. If there's increased activity, which increases the amount of cash handled on a day-to-day, then we make deposits no less than twice a week. And that's typical at the beginning of a semester when you have a lot of foot traffic and students coming in to pay their bills. We haven't seen this so much in the past year just because with COVID, more students are going online to make payments. So we really don't have a lot of cash that comes through much anymore. It's really limited. And so we report compliance on that. The next one, I'm sure Josh could cover if you have any questions, but he and his head of maintenance and various contracted service providers maintain the equipment in the facilities. Those equipments within the program areas are maintained by the faculty within their department. Students do not use the college program equipment unless sufficient training has been conducted and they understand the safety and preventative maintenance. And then campus-wide maintenance items of substantial cost, such as roofing, parking, sidewalk, are consistently being assessed for potential repair replacement. Number 4, the college has regular inspections, and Josh can go into more detail about that, but between the fire marshal, the EPA, OSHA, he is the contact for those agencies. And I know that in the past, we've had a couple of those agencies on our campus, and we, of course, report compliance. Number 5, make any single asset purchase over $2,500 without having obtained a comparative price and without due consideration of cost, quality, and service. That is in our policy. It's a purchasing policy. And so 6.2.5, so we report compliance. Here's one that you were mentioning: make any purchase or initiate construction, remodeling, or alterations of real property over $25,000 without board approval. And each time that we've had to do that, we've come to you for approval. Even if it's a sole source item, we've brought it to you for approval. Number 7, receive, process, or disperse funds under controls that are insufficient to meet the financial auditor standards. All funds are handled and accepted practices as supported by our audit, which our last one was dated in December. And then dispose of real property without board approval. No real property has been acquired, encumbered, or disposed of without your approval. Enter into any lease agreement for real property in excess of $20,000 without your approval. We have not had any lease finance construction remodeling in excess since the last one we did with government capital. And then fail to protect our intellectual property information and files from loss, damage, and improper access. Our IT department has a fantastic plan that they have in place, that we have multiple backups, firewalls, protections, and things of that nature. And of course, Josh can go into more detail about that.
Want more detail? Hopefully it isn't like what Potawatomi County's was, that their backup file was identified as backup file.
Well, that's kind of a good thing you bring that up. So Carmel mentioned the cyber security insurance, and the big thing now, and I'm sure you've all heard of the ransomware because it's a hot topic around here. And that's part of the problem is everybody's doing these backups, but now the ransomware is not only locking down your live data, but your backups as well.
Right.
So right now, the way we combat that is we do a rotated disk off the wire backup as well as an offsite. So you have your offsite in case of local disaster, tornado, et cetera. And then we have that off the wire for the ransomware scenario. But then on top of that, we work with Chubb Insurance, which is part of our What's our company?
Charlton.
Charleston and Wilson.
Thank you. As far as our insurance provider, and they're putting together some renewals right now for the cyber part. And in fact, I think once we have those together to share with you, we might even have a little quick 10-minute with our insurance rep there to talk through how that actually works for us. And then on top of that, for the ransomware, an improvement we'll be making this year is now our backup provider called Veeam has a way you can harden your offsite backup repository to where you can actually protect it from ransomware as well. It's called a hardened, can't think of the term off the top of my head, but anyways, it's an improvement because like I said, ransomware is really a big topic across the board. So that, and then we do also have lots of intrusion prevention system right at the front end in our firewall that it's called Snort actually, but that kind of sits there all day and looks for suspicious activity and it should cut it off before it happens. So,
Got everything that our students access and staff access is multiple authentication.
yeah, so that's something we kind of talked about the last one, but yeah, we've been pushing on it for a while, but however, it's something that our insurance company helped enforce is part of our renewal requires you to enforce that across the board, which is good. I'm glad they made us do it. Because we've been offering it as opt-in for a long time, and now we can finally really push. Because it is some extra steps, and I understand there's some headaches to it, but it's well worth the added security.
Everybody's laughing because I updated my password and locked myself out of everything this week because I'm across the board on stuff, mobile devices. So
Yeah, and the only other big thing we do have to be careful of is we do have tons of sensitive data, student records, employee records in a database. That's all encrypted at rest, they call it. So if all those databases are fully encrypted, so only our users can access and see that data. So
When one of us tends to get a fish email, like when I get it, I send it over to Josh, check this, then he usually notifies everybody to be on the lookout because they are getting so sophisticated. Our networking program, probably about at least once a year, or once a semester, we'll do a workshop that faculty and staff are urged to attend where they get reminders on passwords, things like that. I mean, it's a constant, always effort. And then he's got some key people on his staff that like working for us with our environment that keep us safe. They could probably make 5 times the money if they wanted to work for somebody else with their talent. But kind of like the environment we get them.
yeah, something like 80% of the ransomware start from somebody clicking in an email somewhere they shouldn't usually provide their credentials.
It's usually a mock email for me saying, would you please send me this?
Okay.
Okay. Last one is compensation and benefits.
Yes. Last but certainly not least, the internal monitoring report for compensation and benefits. And what this is saying is, for instance, number one, with respect to employment compensation and benefits, the president shall not cause or allow fiscal integrity or public image to be jeopardized. Number one, not change his or her compensation or benefits. We have not changed Jen's compensation or benefits. We report compliance. Number two, promise of imply permanent or guarantee employment. We have not promised or implied any permanent employee to any individual. We report compliance. There is no number three. That's very odd. That's very good. So we'll skip to 4.
it's compliant. Number 3 is compliant. Yes.
It's compliant, yes. Number 4, established compensation and benefits which deviate significantly from the area or market for skills employed. We did do a balanced comp study in 2011. But as you know, each year we try to keep up with the cost of a living adjustment for our employees. And so we do monitor that every year so that we can try to maintain competitive wages and stay within the market. We can see other institutions' salaries through our IPEDS data, which is the educational data that is submitted to them by each institution. And so we do try to keep our wages at above or average or aligned with the market demand. So we report compliance. And then B, create obligations over longer term that revenues can be safely projected in no event longer than 1 year. We have not created any obligations which cannot be sustained by our existing revenue streams. Contracts and wage notices are issued annually and are subject to availability of funds. So we also report compliance.
And that's why we're careful with maintenance of effort and stimulus funds. We see those as venture capital related to infrastructure, not an ongoing, we've got to do this all the time. We do have to factor in operational costs, maintenance costs. Any questions on compensation and benefits? Thank you, Carmela and Josh and Melissa. The next one, achievement of ends, is the key one where we take a look back at the last academic year. And we lived up to what we say we are. And I would say we've done well. Your vision and mission for the board, I think we've met it well. We've got some evidence there. I'm not going to read this line for line. Ranked high in graduation rate, all of them ranked as #1 again at the best two-year college in Kansas. We've won recent awards on nursing. We had 2 national champions for the first time in Skills USA. Big one is we got our reaffirmation from our accreditation agency. It should never be taken for granted. We did very well with that thanks to the work of all of our folks. The second one on essential skills, 2 items there, and we've got some evidence for you. This is taken from data we collect and or K-Board data and or IPEDS data. But start with nursing, completion and licensure pass rates. We're strong with the RN program. We've got some issues with class completion rate for the class that graduates in December. Part of that is they come in, most nursing students are trying to get in August or July or August. So by offering that second cohort, we sometimes are getting, I'm not going to say not the cream of the crop, but we're getting students that may have missed a cut and applied for us. It's not an unusual thing when you have 2 cohorts like that, where you have one that's got a lesser completion rate. The PN licensure rate, very strong. We do a good job with it. The key thing is, to me, it's that pass rate. We've taught them well, they're passing the state exam so they can go to work. The other thing is our RN program is accredited. So if they go on for that BSN, their credits will be accepted. There are not that many nursing programs in the state of Kansas that are accredited. A lot of people end up in a non-accredited program, and then when they work on that bachelor's degree, they don't get to take the credits with them. Part B, some industry credentials. We do NOCTI tests related to EPD and information networking technology. And you'll see pretty good growth there in the number of students and the number of credentials that they earn. That just reaffirms that we're teaching them well. Part C, you'll see the latest we have related to Jeff's area with automotive technology and the credentials there. And this is broken down by topic, but you also get to see where we rank versus the national average for passing those ASE tests. And again, we knock it out of the park. We're working to improve how we track this stuff. This doesn't include all the first aid certificates, CPR, OSHA, across the board stuff. We're going to try and get better and better on this. The state regions are putting stuff into a thing called Credential Engine, and individual institutions, we can go in and put this kind of information in. This is what is really becoming that consumer protection process, if you will, where students know, I'm going to go look at this. What's your pass rate, your job placement rate? What kind of credentials can I earn? It's quickly going far beyond an academic transcript to the credentials. What am I really getting for my money? The other thing is we'll be tracking more and more is what we're doing through the Regional Testing Center. Much of that is with our students, but it also has activity not from our students, but just from people doing a test, licensure exam, coding exam, et cetera. But it all applies toward this topic and your mission with the board related to ends. Part 2 on this, core abilities. So these are the soft skills, if you will, or the essential interpersonal skills. This is based on part of our learning, our assessment of student learning with accreditation. You'll see the graphs there related to oral communication, written, critical thinking, and problem solving, quantitative literacy. 11 of our programs had respondents for this. This is what we keep building on, working with our faculty. This is what HLC liked. They just want to see more longitudinal and how do we close the loop on saying, here's what we learned from this, here's what we're going to do different. Another part of this that we're enacting related to HLC is called Co-Curricular Assessment. This was the fun one when it first came out, probably 10 years ago, where everybody, all the colleges and universities said, what do you mean by co-curricular assessment? Because HLC likes to tell you, we're looking for this, but we're not going to tell you how to do it or what it really means. So you scroll down to page 5, you will see the graph or the chart, if you will, that our assessment committees put together on co-curricular learning outcomes. So we start to survey our students from our student activities, other organizations, et cetera, on these things. And then if you scroll on to page 6, we get into work preparedness. Now, at some point, we're probably going to need to spend a little bit of time on this report because it's duplicating some areas. So what I've pointed out here in work preparedness, the evidence is on all the other sections. I'm not going to keep repeating it. What you're seeing from these other sections is, can our students demonstrate skills and knowledge required for successful entry into the workforce? The credentials, the pass rates, the fact that our job placement rate is always at about 95% or higher. That's proof. Work ethics, discipline, collaborative skills necessary. That goes back to that core outcomes and those soft skill charts you just saw. Skills and knowledge necessary to maintain, advance, or change their employment or occupation. It's a little different to try for us to measure. We're not a job placement service, but again, our job placement rate, the fact that so many students stay in the area, and some more data we're going to look at in a minute, I would report compliance. If you go to page 7, this is the one that I think you want to brag about with the community. This is data straight from KBOR. And if you look, breaks it down by our degree area. They don't break into certificates, but this is from our degree areas, number of graduates employed in the region and the median earnings of program graduates. But if you look at that, applied studies, which is our version of a general studies degree, 83% of our graduates stay in the area. Air conditioning, refrigeration, 88%, RNs, 88%, auto tech, 83%, construction tech, 80%. You drop down to medical lab tech, 87%. Stay in the region. That's a heck of a workforce we're providing. The award type for last academic year, short-term credentials were 35%, certificates 42%, associate degrees 23%. Then you look at this general areas. Healthcare is what we're known for. Manufacturing, construction, mechanics, IT, those are all growing. That is, pardon me, that's some hellacious evidence about the quality of work our faculty and students do and our engagement with employers. I have Hannah working on taking a look at this kind of data from all the tech colleges and the community colleges, thinking ahead to the next legislative session in our work with KBOR. Kim Withroder in our institutional research area worked on part of this for part of her master's degree and took me off on it. And right now, all the funding in the state's based on enrollment. So there's always discussion. There's a gradual movement to what's the outcome. And the work Kim initially did looking at IPEDS data with the tech colleges and the community, all the tech colleges and the community colleges that are in our area. The tech colleges are 20 to 30% above the community colleges on retention and graduation rates. So I visited with our lobbyists about how we're going to focus the tech college lobbying effort on outcomes, this kind of stuff. We blow everybody out of the water. K-State's got a very good retention and graduation rate. They've upped their game big time, but they don't have anywhere close to 80% of their graduates staying in this region.
On national level, you know, there's all this discussion with the budget and all this, and you're talking about free community college. To your point, I don't think they're separating out. Maybe I'm just ignorant to what they're thinking, but you know, we all understand the difference in technical college and what the potential outcomes are for employment, contributing to communities. What are your thoughts on? I mean, I think it's off the table now. But
Yes, yeah, it is. And we're included in the community college group. because we're a two-year college. But yeah, there's not enough distinction about the community colleges doing tech ed and or the tech colleges. There's not that many that just do tech. But in Kansas, we make a pretty loud voice on this with the legislature and with the state regents and the tech ed authority. Let me go on to the next one, and then we're going to come back. The last one is on leadership. This is part of our co-curricular assessment on doing some surveys with the students. And of course, the last couple of years where we've tried to first implement this was impacted with COVID, so the responses were not that great. But you look for spring of 21, I'm going to say we bounced back where it's supposed to be. Neil can tell you better than anybody here, and Brian's tried to help with BTK, but for a two-year college like us, especially when so many of our students are in a short-term program or a one-year certificate, to really get them engaged in the student organization is like pulling teeth. They come here, they do their class, they go to work. They're not interested in being part of a group that's going to do community service projects or anything else. And so we've had some discussions. Doesn't mean we don't try to teach the key skills like on this one. This specifically asked them, if you learned about leadership, if you had chances to do that. I think our focus, I put words in a few of the people's mouths here, we're going to focus a lot on Skills USA.
Yeah, we're revamping student organizations.
That's going to really, because that one really demonstrates right back to employers in the community who are teaching these kids skills that they can market. Basically the Olympics, if you will.
Well, success at skills are marketable assets for them when they go to get a job. It's beneficial for them to participate in it.
Last week, myself, and this is in the president's report, but myself, Greg from Salina Tech, who's the VP of the Tech College President's Group, and our lobbyist, Steve Kearney, we met with our counterparts from community colleges. You've heard me talk about the gap we have in funding, where the regions don't change what colleges get depending on the moment. They don't do that because there's a whole harmless clause. And so the tech colleges, we worked together. Greg at Salina Tech took the lead because he's a numbers guy. But we put together a proposal, gave it to KBOR, then we brought in the community colleges. And surprisingly, the meeting with the community colleges wasn't near as a matter of conflict than I thought it was going to be. 6 of the 7 tech colleges have a gap. We're underfunded about $500,000. Wichita Tech is underfunded close to $3 million. And as we've been saying, pay us for performance. This is crap. County community colleges overpaid almost $3 million. Well, too bad. I'm sorry. The rest of us are performing. So with the community colleges, especially with the ones who have been underpaid, like Hutchinson, Johnson County, Butler County, some of the bigger ones, yeah, they want their money too. But how do we do this in a way that we can inflict milder pain over a few years by balancing things out and push for more funding? So we reached some agreement. Tomorrow I have a meeting with the tech college presidents to see if they'll buy into what we're going to propose to take back to the community colleges. But if we can get most of the community colleges on board, then we can start pushing this through the Tech Ed Authority, KBOR, and the legislature. And over probably a 5-year period, balance things out so the money goes where it needs to go. That's significant. Second thing real quick, after last month's board meeting, the Friday after that, Sarah and I met with General Myers and Provost Tabor. General Myers goes, what's this meeting for? And we're both like, well, you called the meeting. And he was kind of joking. We had a good we had a good discussion. I'm going to phrase it this way. I'm cautiously less pessimistic. I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, but we talked about the agreement we had put together with their former student services VP, Pat Bosco, before he retired, that was shot down by their academic folks. And we were pretty blunt about that. Mm-hmm. And we were very blunt about the fact that this is hurting you guys in the community worse than us. You got an enrollment issue, we don't. So Sarah is going to be working on how we target certain programs where we think we can make a breakthrough at K-State. The computer science department has reached out to us. We think we can work with that. Construction trades, David, we may need to lean on you for whatever connection you may still have in that department. But really we want to look at where we've got so many of these students stay in the area working. After they've worked a year or two, K-State, can't you take these students in without them losing credit? They've shown they can do the job. And we feed you some students that way. At the same time, K-State send us some of the students that are washed out because they got into the program, they got into the university they should. So at least Tabor realizes there may be room to make breakthroughs in some select programs. That would be a good start. Second thing is General Myers brought up, he's part of a group based in Texas that really emphasizes military people getting training to diagnose and repair high-end medical equipment. And he's looking forward to the expansion of that opportunity. Right now it's in Dallas. So Friday, I'm meeting with him and the president of this group for lunch, and then they're coming up here for a tour. The guy from Dallas is. General Myers is chairman of the board of this other group. So I think the word I got from several sources is he tried to shop at K-State Polytechnic at Salina. They saw conflict of interest and backed off. Fine, we'll take it. Sarah and I've looked at the curriculum. We've got about 70% of it in place between our other programs. But again, it may be a good opportunity. And the one thing General Myers is adamant about is opportunities for military. So keep your fingers crossed. Harry's coming on to be executive director of the foundation, work with community relations on a part-time basis. He and Sarah have been in a lot of the meetings I've had with the Career Academy or Amigo. The chamber is still, the community is still in the running for one or two big business projects, both of which people in the community have told me over and over, if either one of these happens to break, we've got to figure out how to help you guys because you're going to have to ramp up. I've probably had over a dozen people in the last week get hold of me and say, how you doing? You're not thinking of retiring, because I turned the big 65 last week. I said, I'm not retiring. Because I said, you guys, we're going to need you guys. So I don't know what you guys may be hearing, but I'm hearing it more and more because of what we're doing, the skills we provide. We talked to General Myers and Provost Tabor, especially about the skills we provide in critical environment engineering, tech, bio, medical lab tech, biotech. And the realization they have, yeah, we don't teach those things and we need it. So keep pushing. You got to keep pushing. But again, I look at this kind of data in this report. I'm damn proud of what we do. You should be too. This is pretty amazing. Comments? You're going to get a revised version of this in email. I apologize to Chris earlier. I did not include stuff about adult ed in the original version. I'm adding that. We're going to take information from this report to put together our first annual report of the college. Try to get that ready over the next few weeks. It's going to be more in a brochure form, but really emphasizing some of these statistics so that we can share it with a lot of folks. Harry, I'm sure you have something to say.
I'm intently listening to you. It's all good stuff.
What's the timeline of the gap process, if that would all?
It would have to go through the legislature. If they would accept what we're putting together and pass it, it would start taking effect next fiscal year.
So,
yeah. If we pull that off, we're going to have some different beverage at the next meeting or whenever it passes. We're going to celebrate because I didn't think we could. I thought we got shot down a lot faster than where we are so far.
Policy says president can approve it.
Comments, questions on achievement of ends? Again, on adult ed, we've done 3 times or over 100% more than the school district did. Not to knock the school district. We've got it in the right environment. And then the number of people you have that go into the workforce through adult ed is almost doubled.
And in our programs.
Yeah.
From not only GE, but also ESL are in our programs.
It's good stuff.
very.
I think I'm out of breath, Mr. Chairman.
What's the process of getting Title III again with funding?
Sure, it's a great segue, right?
You're on.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sure, I'll answer that quickly. So now that we have ended Title III, officially ended on September 30th, we have to wait out 1 year to then apply for eligibility to apply for another grant. So and correct me if I'm wrong, because Jim's done this a couple times. So I believe if we sit out now, by August, September of next year, we can start to apply for eligibility for October 1 of 2022. And then we can apply for the grant, write the grant, have everything submitted in the spring of 23. And if approved, we fund it in October 1 of 23.
Right.
For another 5-year.
Yeah, it'd be FY24 when we could get, as soon as we can get funding again. So if the feds don't change the regs, once you get a Title III, it's easier to get it. It's not a shoe in, but it's much easier, so.
Sure, and then this attachment number 11 that you all have, this is our final evaluation. Every year, Title III is evaluated from an external evaluator to ensure compliance. And that also goes a long way towards applying for a new Title III grant in the next year. Because when they review our application, they will see, okay, Manhattan Tech has applied for this before. They'll review our file and make sure that we are in compliance and that there are no other issues. And that does help us move forward with another project to help strengthen the institution. I won't go through this whole report. I just want to point out a couple of things for the year objectives, and then finally the overall project objectives. This will probably be my last Title III report for you all for at least a little while. On page 4 of attachment 11, we talk about one of the objectives was by the end of the project year to have 75% of students in the online hybrid program succeed with a C or better. The baseline 2014, 72% of students were receiving at least a C or better. We ended last year with a 78.5 success rate. So that was a very encouraging number for that. Shows that those online hybrid programs are working, especially during COVID times. That definitely helps the flexibility. The next, just the performance indicators on those were to that we would include training, and we revised several classes. That's on page 5. But of the 20 hours of training, we did over 30. The next one talks about our early alert system. And you've probably heard us talk about Starfish in the past. That was our early alert system that the grant funded through years 3. We started in late 3rd year, I believe. Yeah, year 3. Piloted in year 4 and 5. The target was to hit 100 early alerts, and we kind of blew it out of the water. We had 6,605 flags. A lot of those were system generated because the system actually performed a lot more efficiently than what was initially thought in 2014, because it would flag if an individual got a low test score. If they hadn't logged into our Canvas LMS for several days, it would throw up a flag saying, hey, this student might need to be contacted and reached out. That system we determined just was not feasible for the cost-wise, but we were able to move to the gens of our system. So Title III was a big part of that to help move that forward. The next one talks about headcount. Headcount would increase 20% over the fall baseline in 2014 of 766. We did not hit the 20%, but obviously there were a lot of external factors. In fall 2019, we were at 16% above, and on page 7 is a nice chart that Kim Winkler put together for us that shows our head count from all 5 years of the project, and also the retention rate, which isn't necessarily mentioned throughout Title III. However, that was the overall arching goal of Title III for MATC, was to help improve retention. So one of my biggest takeaways from this is in fall 2017, we were at a 52% retention rate across first-time, full-time degree-seeking students, and we're now at, from fall of 2020, it's 77%. So an improvement. Bottom of page 7, we talk about the increase to our technology infrastructure. Josh can go all into that, but we blew that out of the water as well, because they were looking for 42 terabytes of storage, and we're at 105 terabytes of storage, and much more processing. I'm going to jump just to the very back. Those are our year 5 project goals, and then just the overall kind of looking back at the project review. Grant year 1, we totally renovated the teaching and learning. Well, it was the library at the time, or start with the resource, I think. Art, yeah. Which was just a bunch of bookshelves and some nice red brick, and then it's now turned into our teaching and learning center. The Brainfuse online tutoring program that we have, that's accessible 24/7 was used. Brian's still on. We have our math recitations and our peer tutor systems that we're looking to continue on due to their success and helping students maintain or improve their GPAs. Oh, excuse me. And then just with the student services side of it, the efficiency of the advising system, both to be in person and virtual. Obviously, COVID did kind of push us in that direction anyways, but I believe the contacts were better. If that's very weird to say, but the overall advising was
Online degree audits.
Thing,
Yeah. Health coaches be able to audit their degrees in person instead of via pen and paper, so you could get real time.
Anytime.
Chris is one of the folks that you need.
yeah. But no, overall, the external report, our external evaluator, Carolyn Brown, I've worked with her now for 3 different projects, and she was very, very happy with us and very encouraged to see all the growth of MATC. And I think one of the biggest comments that she put in this report was the fact that no one on campus really knew about Title III. That sounds kind of weird because you're like, oh, everyone should know that. It was so well integrated into the college systems that people didn't really necessarily know that Title III was coming. In fact, one of our advisors in the meeting even goes, I didn't realize I was a part of this until just now.
And I can say from administering these kind of grants at other places, that can be a problem. People look on this kind of a grant as the stepchild. And just like with the ALC, everybody's embraced it. And frankly, we wouldn't have come through the pandemic as well as we did without Title III. That's what got everybody ready for what we didn't know was coming.
So, you have to answer any questions?
We will over the next several months. We already have a lot of ideas for the next grant. Chris is going to flesh those out a little bit. We'll work with our consultants on that project. We have one of the best consultants in the nation for this grant. They only get paid if we get funded, then they get paid well. But it's worth it. I've worked with them for almost all my career. And we'll get more updates as we get closer to deciding on probably our top 2 options for the next grant proposal.
Any further discussion?
And for the next couple of years, we're able to sustain all this all the way through without any reservation.
We are going to be looking very closely. I talked to Carmela, Melissa, Sarah, and Josh. We're going to look a lot at fees before we come up with our tuition fee recommendations in the spring. We've kind of alternated, not doing both each year, but we'll do one then the other. We're going to take a hard look at some of the fees to make sure we can keep things rolling with some of this investment.
We need to anyway because of the pandemic and the cost of materials and supplies and consumables and everything.
All right. Any further discussion? Looking back on the agenda, meetings and upcoming events, campus is closed November 22nd through 26th. Next board meeting is scheduled for November 30th. And so we will discuss the December meeting.
Yeah, if we need to have one or not.
We'll talk about it next month.
Yeah, talk about it in November. You might have your calendars the next meeting in case. My suggestion right now is we try to avoid one in December because of everybody's holiday calendars. But if we need to have an emergency meeting for some reason, we can do that. In previous years, we usually skip November because of the way Thanksgiving fell. We did one in December this year. Also, if there's a need to move it to a different time, night, whatever, please let us know. We have not had any more applications for board members at this time. Still working on that. We need to.
Yes.
And we have reached out to Mr. Madsen, but we do need to work on that pretty soon too.
We know you to.
A lot of good stuff.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Any other topics we missed? Before we adjourn, I want to say thanks to Jim and the entire faculty and staff for everything you guys are doing, and include the board in that thank you as well. You can see from all the reporting that we're doing very well as an institution. I keep seeing our commercials on TV all the time. So we're doing a great job there. And we're seeing the benefits of all of your hard work with the students that we're graduating and the impact they're having on our community. So I just want to say thank you to everybody again for doing what you're doing.
Next, we're going to take over the Chiefs coaching.
All we need is for your head to explode. I declare this meeting adjourned. It would have been funny if you had like a little,
Yeah.
emoji or something.